So I want you to picture something for me today. Picture a tree. But not just any tree. I am talking about an absolute monster of a tree.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
A tree so massive that it doesn't just have one trunk. It has like 5 or 10, maybe even 20 different trunks.
Wow.
Yeah, and it spans 50, maybe 60 feet across.
Yeah.
And it's doing this weird thing where it's dropping these roots right out of the sky, like some kind of alien organism.
That paints quite a picture.
Right, and it's huge. Objectively speaking, it is the most dominant thing in the entire landscape.
Which sounds like something you couldn't possibly miss if you walk by it.
Exactly. You would think it would be completely impossible to ignore. But that is actually the hook for today's deep dive.
Oh, I love a good misdirection.
We are looking at how it is entirely possible to walk past a giant like that 1,000 times and simply, we'll just not see it.
Or at least not see it for what it truly is.
Right. Not really observe it until you have the right tool or maybe just the right moment of clarity.
It's that classic difference between merely looking at something and actually observing it.
So true. So we are digging into a really fascinating set of observations today. It comes from a blog called kienmeng.org.
Okay.
Specifically, we are looking at a post dated March 1st, 2026. And the author, his name is Ang. He is quite a character. We definitely need to talk about him first.
Yeah, his background really colors the whole post.
It does. He actually described himself on the site as an old software plumber.
Which is such a specific and great way to self-identify.
Right.
Because, calling yourself a plumber in the tech world implies he is working on the pipes.
Messy stuff.
Exactly, the infrastructure,
Yeah.
the hidden stuff behind the walls that actually makes the software run. He's not just making things look pretty.
No, he's deep in the code. And he brings that exact check the pipes mentality to his garden of all places.
That intersection of tech and nature is just brilliant.
It really is. And so this post we're looking at today is titled Notes on Gardening. But get this, it is part 822.
Part 822.
Yes.
That is just a staggering amount of data to collect on a hobby.
I know, right?
At that point, it's not even a hobby anymore. That is a full-on longitudinal study of his environment.
It really is a study. And when you scroll through his archives, it isn't just plants either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's this wild mix of things. He has notes on Python, notes on Rust programming, notes on Elixir, and even notes on fish keeping.
Fish keeping, too.
Yeah, the guy is just clearly obsessed with systems. He wants to know how things work at their core, whether that's a line of code or a literal fish tank filter.
And that context, I think, is totally crucial for what we're talking about today.
Sure.
Because what we are really seeing here is a professional debugger stepping outside into the physical world.
Yes, perfectly said.
He is applying the exact same rigor that he uses to find software bugs to the trees in his local park.
And in this specific post, that's exactly what happens. He realizes that he has been running on bad data regarding this one specific tree.
A literal bug in his mental database.
Yep. So let's get into the bug. The error in his code, so to speak.
Let's do it.
So Ang is wandering through a public park, or it might be a botanical garden, he mentions, during these field trips, and he's looking at this massive ficus tree.
The monster tree I mentioned earlier?
The monster, yes.
Oh.
Now, in a previous entry on his blog, part 760 to be exact, he had already logged this exact tree in his system.
He had it tagged.
He had it tagged as an Indian banyan. The scientific name is Ficus bengalensis.
Which honestly is a very reasonable assumption to make if you're just looking at
I
it.
think so.
Oh, absolutely. If you ask almost any layperson to name a giant tree that has aerial roots hanging down, they are probably going to guess it's a banyan.
Right, that makes sense.
The Indian banyan is incredibly iconic. It's the national tree of India. It's the tree you see all the time in religious iconography.
The classic image of a sprawling tree.
Exactly. It is basically the default setting for big ficus trees in our cultural imagination. So his initial tag was a very educated guess.
But then on this trip, in March 2026, he stops. He actually takes a closer look. And he realizes, wait a minute, this label is wrong.
The data is corrupted.
Yes, he realizes it is not an Indian banyan at all. It is actually a Malayan banyan, or Ficus microcarpe.
And this right here is where that software plumber mindset really shines through.
Because most people wouldn't care.
Exactly. Most people, if they somehow realized they misidentified a random tree in a park, would just shrug. They'd think, big tree, little tree, who cares?
Right, it's still just a tree.
But for Ang, that misidentification is a genuine bug. It's a system error in his personal knowledge base. And bugs need to be patched.
They can't be left alone. But here's the thing that really caught me off guard reading this. How did he actually catch the bug?
He didn't just guess right.
No, it wasn't just a hunch. He didn't just stare at the bark until the Latin name magically floated into his head. He actually used a tool.
Ah, the tools of the trade.
He specifically mentions in the post that he used AI to identify the exact leaf shape and size.
See, this is a really profound shift in how we learn about our physical environment today.
How so?
Well, think about the past. Even just 10 years ago, if you suspected you were wrong about a tree identification, what would you have to do?
Go to a library, maybe?
Right. You'd need a heavy field guide. You'd have to physically flip through hundreds of pages, compare little hand-drawn illustrations, maybe even measure a leaf with a literal ruler.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It was. It was a very high-friction process.
And because it was high friction, most of us just wouldn't do it right. We would just stay ignorant because the cost of finding the answer was just too high.
Precisely. You just walk away. But Aang has this incredibly powerful tool right in his pocket. He snaps a photo, the AI analyzes the visual pattern, and boom, instant new data.
It's so fast.
Yeah.
And let's actually be specific about what the AI likely saw when he took that photo. Because to the casual eye, the difference between these two banyan trees is pretty subtle.
It really is. So let's break down the tell. What makes them different?
Yeah. What is the AI actually seeing?
So Ficus bengalensis, the Indian banyan, it usually has these very large leathery leaves. They are somewhat oval-shaped and they look heavy. Okay, big, thick leaves.
Right. But Ficus microcarpe, the Malayan banyan he actually found, the biggest crew, is right there in the Latin name.
Microcarpe.
Exactly. Microcarpe literally translates to small fruit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the leaves on this tree are generally much smaller, they are a bit more elliptical, and the figs that grow on it are tiny compared to the Indian variety.
So it's almost like a texture difference. The Indian banyan is kind of low res with these big blocky leaves, and the Malayan banyan is higher. Lots of little intricate detail.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it, yes. And the AI, which has been trained on millions of images, can pick up that specific texture difference instantly.
Let's just know.
It's pure pattern matching. It is essentially doing a dip check, to use a coding term, between the image Aang just took and the massive database of known plant species.
I just love that concept, running a diff check on nature.
It really changes how you see a walk in the park.
It turns the whole park into a data set. But what's interesting is that once he finally gets the name right in the post, the whole tone shifts.
He moves past the bug. Yet he stops worrying about the label completely and starts just obsessing over the actual physical architecture of the thing.
And his description of the Malayan banyan is just...
Well, it's intense.
It is so vivid. He talks about those aerial roots we mentioned. He describes them as a, quote, curtain of slender strands dropping from the branches, end quote.
A curtain of strands.
Yeah, and I was trying to picture that. Imagine standing underneath it. At that point, it feels less like a normal tree and more like, I don't know, a giant jellyfish.
Or some kind of complex living art installation.
Totally.
It is biological engineering at its absolute finest because those slender strands aren't just there to look spooky or decorative.
No, they have a job.
Right. Aang points out a really incredible functional detail in his notes. Initially, when those roots first drop, they're actually there to absorb moisture directly from the air.
So it's literally just drinking the humidity.
Exactly. In tropical climates, the air is incredibly dense with water, so the tree is just bypassing the soil entirely for a while and pulling resources right out of the atmosphere.
That is wildly efficient. It is. But then comes the real transformation. And this is the part that honestly always feels a little like sci-fi to me.
Okay, what happens?
Well, Aang writes, quote, once they hit the ground, they'll thicken and form secondary trunks, end quote.
Secondary trunks.
Yes. This is the absolute genius of the banyan's evolutionary strategy. Just think about a standard tree like an oak or a pine tree.
Okay, I've got an oak tree in my head.
You have one single central column, right? The main trunk.
Right.
And everything else, all the branches, they have to cantilever out from that one center point.
Right, which means there's a limit.
Exactly. There is a strict physical limit to how far a wooden branch can stick out horizontally before it just snaps under its own sheer weight.
Physics just takes over.
Physics dictates the ultimate shape of that tree, period.
But the banyan just cheats.
It completely cheats. It refuses to accept that physical limit. It grows a long branch out, drops a root down from it, that root hits the soil, and then it lignifies.
Lignifies meaning it turns into actual wood.
Yes, it hardens into wood. And suddenly, that heavy branch has a brand new leg to stand on. It has essentially built its own supporting pillar.
It's like scaffolding. It is literally building its own support structure, piece by piece, so it can just keep expanding outward.
Precisely. And because it can create an endless number of these new supports, it can keep growing horizontally almost indefinitely.
That's insane.
It isn't just growing up toward the sun, it's growing out. It is actively colonizing the physical space around it.
And that right there is exactly why I called it a monster in the intro. It is a tree that essentially walks,
It really does move across the landscape over time.
dropping new legs, taking over new ground. Eng describes the canopy in the post as tall, massive, and spreading.
Because it essentially becomes a forest made of just one single organism.
Right, and that scale, that massive spreading nature you're talking about, that is actually what triggers what I think is the most profound insight in Eng's entire post.
Oh, definitely. It leads straight into what I would call the rural paradox.
Yeah. Yes, the rural paradox. This was the exact part of the post that made me stop reading and just kind of stare at the wall for a minute.
It's a very striking realization.
Because Eng shares a little bit of his personal history here. He casually mentions that he actually grew up in a rural area,
Right. So you have this guy who spent his entire childhood out in the countryside.
surrounded by nature. And the assumption, at least my assumption anyway, is that if you grow up in the country, you know trees.
You've seen it all.
Yeah, you've been running through the woods and swinging on vines since you were 6 years old.
Because we heavily equate the word rural with the concept of wild.
We really do.
We just
Yeah.
automatically assume that the further you drive away from the concrete of the city, the more untamed nature you're going to find.
The Eng writes that he is, quote, quite surprised, end quote, that despite his rural upbringing, he had literally never encountered a massive banyan tree before this.
Never.
He cannot recall ever seeing a canopy this huge until he started visiting these specific parks in highly developed urban areas.
And that is such a sharp, brilliant sociological observation, just casually buried inside a gardening note.
It's so deep.
He's basically asking the question, why? Why are the biggest, wildest, most sprawling trees entirely missing from the open countryside?
And his theory for why that is, it's just brutal in its simplicity.
It is.
He says, quote, in agricultural areas, trees like this are often cleared because they take up too much space, end quote.
It is a harsh economic reality check.
Yeah.
If you are a farmer, your land is not a nature preserve. Your land is your factory.
Right, your livelihood depends on it.
Your only goal is yield. You need sunlight hitting your crops, not getting blocked by a massive 60-foot tree canopy.
You need straight rows.
You need straight open rows for your tractor and your harvesting equipment.
And the banyan, as we just established, is the ultimate enemy of straight rows.
It is the final boss of farm obstacles. A banyan doesn't stay put. It drops those secondary trunks we talked about. It's spread horizontally.
It eats the land.
Exactly. To a farmer trying to make a living, a Malayan banyan isn't some majestic wonder of the natural world. It is a weed.
A giant woody weed.
It is a weed that is actively stealing valuable acreage and sunlight from your cash crop, so it has to go.
Man, that just completely flips the script on how we generally think about nature.
It really does.
We always picture the farm as this green, idyllic, natural place.
Right.
But Eng is pointing out that a farm is actually a highly controlled, ruthlessly manicured environment.
It's a monoculture.
Right.
It is a literal production facility that just happens to have a dirt floor. And you cannot have chaos on a production line.
And a giant, sprawling, self-scaffolding ficus tree is pure biological chaos.
So they get cut down. Generations ago, they were cleared out to make room for the rice or the corn.
So where does Eng actually find these giants now? He lists the locations in his post.
He does.
He says he finds them in heritage sites, public parks, and botanical gardens.
And right there is the rural paradox fully realized. If you want to see the wildest, most unconstrained behavior of a giant tree, you actually have to go into the city.
You have to go where the concrete is.
You have to visit the specific places where land has been deliberately rezoned for leisure rather than for production.
The city park is essentially a museum for wild trees.
In a very real way, yes. Because in a public park, the goal isn't agricultural efficiency. The goal is providing shade, aesthetic, beauty, air quality.
Things the banyan is great at.
Exactly. The banyan is finally allowed to be its true sprawling self in the city precisely because it is not competing with a cash crop.
It is protected by the exact urbanization that we usually blame for destroying nature.
It's incredibly ironic.
That thought is going to stick with me the next time I drive past a farm. I'm going to be looking out the window for what is missing.
Looking for the absences.
Yeah, looking for the ghosts of the giant banyans that got cleared out 50 or 100 years ago to make that field.
It is a powerful reminder that the landscapes we see are always a direct result of what our society currently values.
Right.
The farmer values the crop yield, so the tree gets chopped. The urban park planner values the shade canopy, so the tree gets protected.
And Aang, as the observer, is just walking through and decoding those underlying value systems.
Which brings us right back to Aang himself.
Yes. Let's pivot back to him. Because we've been calling him the software plumber. But I think we need to dig a little deeper into what that persona actually means for this post.
The filter he's using to see the world.
Right, because this blog post isn't really just about a tree. It is about the specific mind of the guy looking at the tree.
Totally.
We mentioned his sidebars earlier, the extensive notes on Rust Elixir Python. But there is a very specific flavor to his interests on that site.
Oh, yeah, it's not just random tech stuff.
No, he is heavily into free Libre and open source software. He's deep into fish keeping. What do you think is the main thread connecting all those disparate hobbies to a giant Malayan banyan?
Oh, it's systems thinking, without a doubt.
Systems thinking.
Think about it. If you look at open source software, the whole appeal is about understanding the core code, being able to tinker with it, modify it, and seeing how a complex community contributes to a larger whole.
Okay, I see that.
And if you look at fish keeping, which he writes about a lot, you aren't just putting a fish in water, you are actively managing a highly sensitive, closed ecosystem.
Right, you have to balance the nitrogen cycles, the pH levels, the biological filtration.
Exactly. He is a tinkerer at heart. He fundamentally likes to get his hands into the gears of how complex things operate.
He likes to see the underlying mechanics.
And so when he stands in that park and looks at the Malayan Banyan, I really don't think he just sees pretty leaves and shade.
What does he see?
I think he sees a highly successful biological compilation.
Oh, wow.
He sees a living system that has successfully solved the physical problem of growth versus gravity by implementing that secondary trunk patch we talked about.
Uh-huh. He appreciates the literal source code of the tree.
He really does. He respects the engineering of it.
And that deep appreciation leads to the final and honestly the absolute funniest part of the entire blog post.
It's such a great ending.
Because after describing this massive, unconquerable 60-foot giant spreading across the park, Aang has this incredibly sudden, whimsical pivot.
I know exactly the line you're talking about. It's the very last sentence of the post.
It is. He writes, quote, "Perhaps I should get one and grow it as a bonsai," end quote.
It is just such a perfect engineer reaction to the sublime.
Gave me whiplash reading it. He literally just spent 3 dense paragraphs telling us how this tree is an architectural marvel that eats land and drops roots from the sky.
And his immediate next thought is, yep, I bet I can shrink that entire system down and put it right on my desk.
Exactly. It's so funny.
But if you think about what that impulse actually represents, it's not just a funny whim. It's really about the profound desire for control.
Control, you mean over the tree?
Sure. You can't control the massive banyan in the public park. It is way too big. It belongs to the city. It belongs to nature. It is completely wild. But a bonsai tree. A bonsai is the concept of nature brought under total human submission.
That's a strong way to put it.
But it is. When you grow a bonsai, you control the exact amount of water it gets. You control the specific nutrients in the soil. You carefully snip the microscopic roots. And you meticulously wire the tiny branches into the exact shape you want.
You're forcing the tree to conform to your specific aesthetic vision.
Yes. It is ultimate compression.
Compression. Wow. It's like he wants to take this massive complex file, the terabytes of biological data that make up the giant park tree, and just zip it down to a tiny thumbnail file that fits nicely in his apartment.
That is a brilliant analogy. He literally wants to zip the banyan.
That connects so perfectly to his other hobbies, too, when you frame it like that.
It really does. Writing code is essentially creating a micro world inside your computer, where you are God, you make the rules.
Right.
Fish keeping is creating a micro world inside a glass box in your living room.
And bonsai is just the botanical version of that exact same impulse.
Exactly. It is all about the human desire to hold the extreme complexity of the natural world right in the palms of your hands.
It is the ultimate tinkerer's love language. I love this massive, complex thing, so I must figure out a way to take it apart and reassemble it in miniature so I can understand it.
And honestly speaking, Ficus microcarpe happens to be a classic subject for bonsai enthusiasts.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a very forgiving species. It tolerates the heavy pruning really well, so his instinct is actually completely botanically sound.
That's amazing.
But just the sheer irony of going from, look at this untamable giant, to, I need a tiny version for my desk is just, well, it's very human.
It paints such a great picture of this guy. I just love the mental image of him late at night. Maybe he's got 3 monitors glowing on his desk.
Oh, absolutely.
One screen has some complex Python script he's debugging. Another screen has a live webcam feed of his fish tank's filtration system.
And sitting on the desk right next to his mechanical keyboard
Is a tiny, perfectly potted Malayan Banyan that he is carefully wiring into shape with tweezers.
He is a true Renaissance man for the year 2026. Just seamlessly merging the digital, the aquatic, and the botanical worlds.
And the common denominator through all of it is just relentless curiosity.
That's the key.
We really have to give him credit. I mean, this was note number 822 on his blog. Most people start a blog and give up after like 3 posts.
Or one.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But he has kept going. And because he has kept observing and logging data, he is still finding things he has never encountered before right in his own neighborhood.
And I think that's the real lesson here, isn't it? The world doesn't actually run out of interesting content. We just run out of the attention span needed to see it.
That's very true.
Aang proves that if you just keep your mental filters open, if you actively keep checking your old data and keep using new tools like AI to verify your basic assumptions, you can still find profound wonder in a park you have already walked through 100 times.
So let's try to bring this home for the listener today, because most of us listening aren't old software plumbers.
True.
And most of us probably aren't going to start a 900-part gardening blog anytime soon.
Probably not. But we all walk past things every single day without seeing them. We all have our own Indian banyans in our lives, things we have lazily labeled and filed away in our brains as known quantities.
Oh, that's just the old bank building downtown. Oh, that's just the way the weekly staff meeting always runs.
Exactly. We stop truly seeing those things because we assume we already know exactly what they are and how they work.
We stop running the diff check.
Right. But Aang's story really challenges us to run a diagnostic on our own surroundings.
Maybe it's time to pull out a new tool to look at an old problem.
Maybe that tool is an AI image identifier on your phone, but maybe it's just asking a simple question. Is this thing actually what I think it is? Or why is this massive thing located exactly here?
Or, to use the tree metaphor, what is the hidden secondary trunk that is secretly supporting this massive system I'm looking at?
Yes. Look for those hidden support structures in your daily life.
I love that.
And, building on the rural paradox we discussed, I'd leave you with this final thought. Think about the massive invisible infrastructures in your own life. Not just physical trees, but the huge societal systems or digital algorithms that dictate your day.
Oh, that's a great point.
They are so huge and so omnipresent that you've likely stopped seeing them entirely. You just assume they are natural, permanent parts of the landscape. But what massive systems are you missing simply because they are too big to fit in your field of view?
That is a seriously solid challenge to chew on for the week. Find your own Malayan Banyan. Find the huge, complex thing that is hiding in plain sight just because it's too obvious or because you are just too used to it being there.
And hey, if you do find it and you decide you want to try and shrink it down to keep on your desk,
Just make sure you actually label it correctly in your system this time.
update the database. You must always update the database.
Words to live by. Aang is probably out there writing part 823 as we speak. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
Keep looking closely at the world.
We will see you on the next one.